In this video, we're going to talk about order of operations, and the big thing with order of operations is this is what you do when working forward in a problem. So we're going to talk through the different things. A lot of you know GEMDAS, you learned it in 6th grade, so we're just going to review what that stands for. Your G stands for groupings. Now remember, this is brackets, so that's this little symbol right here of the brackets. It's also parentheses, and it's a fraction, so we're going to look at that in one of the examples. The next type is exponents. So this is whenever it's this little number up here. So you have a certain number squared, 5 cubed, 10 to the 5th power. So remember what this means. So for over here, this means you'll do 5 times 5 times 5. So there are 3 5s that matches your exponent, and you multiply it by itself. This one is x times x, and this one would be 10 times itself 5 times. When we get to the next type down here, we're looking at your M and your D, which is multiply and divide. Now the big thing with this, when we look at this, and I'm going to scooch this down just a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Multiply and divide, this is what's the big thing here. It is whichever comes first when you are reading left to right. So that's why we have these two different boxes right here. If multiplication comes first, you do that first. If division comes second, you do it second. If division comes first in your problem, you do that first. If multiplication comes second, you do that second. So a lot of kids think when we look at GEMDAS like this, that multiplication must always come first. That's not the case. They're interchangeable. They switch to whichever one comes first. Same thing with your adding and subtracting. It is completed left to right, and it is whichever one comes first. So again, if adding comes first, you do that first. If subtracting comes second, you do that second. Same over here. So again, when you're looking at your multiply, divide, and you're adding, subtracting, it's whichever one comes first. So let's look at a couple of examples to see how we work this out. So in this example right here, I have a problem that has a couple different things. Notice we have, for the integers, we have a -5 plus a 4 times positive 2. Remember, when you see a number right beside a parentheses, it is multiplication. And then we have a plus 3 squared. I recommend that in any of these, you always write GEMDAS so that you know your orders that you do. The first one is groupings, which we do not have any groupings. A lot of kids think that because there's parentheses right here, that's what you do first, but there's no operation in that parentheses, so you don't do that. That's just a symbol to show multiplication. So there is no grouping, so we're going to cross that out. The next thing we see is exponents. So we do have a set of exponents right here. Remember, that's your little number up top. So we're going to rewrite everything solving that exponent. So I leave the -5 alone. I leave the plus 4 times 2 alone. And I solve the exponent. So remember, the exponent means you do 3 times 3. So remember, you do that base, that 3 times itself, whatever your exponent says. So 3 times 3 is 9. So now that I'm done with my exponent, can cross it out. I look for multiplication and division. Remember, these are done together. There is no division, but there is a set of multiplication. Remember, this is our multiplication right here. So I'm going to leave -5 plus 4 times 2 is 8 plus 9. So now, again, I have no division, so I'm going to cross those out. And I look for adding and subtracting. So now at this time I have all adding, so I just solve. Remember, with your integers, you're doing -5 plus 8. So if you need to draw that number line, remember, feel free to do that. You're doing -5, adding is to the right, so you go plus 8, and you skip over and you hop however many you need, or if you need to use tiles, do what you need to. Or the rules, remember, when you're adding and they're different signs, you subtract and take the sign of the higher number. So 8 minus 5 is 3. 8 is the bigger number than 5, so it will stay positive 3. So I'm not going to add that because it's known. And plus 9, because we still haven't dealt with this 9 right here. And then 3 plus 9 is 12. So that's how you solve this particular order of operations. So let's look at one more. Now this one, a lot of students tend to struggle with just because they have no clue where to start. I'm going to kind of help you with this one real quick. So what we have here is we have a numerator up here. Here's your numerator. And you have a denominator right here. You have one big fraction. So what we do here is we pretend like the numerator is one big grouping and the denominator is one big grouping. So we treat these as separate things, and then at the very end we will do that division. So remember, when you're dealing with your GEMDAS, groupings always come first. A fraction is one big group. So we treat the individual groups, your numerator and denominator, with GEMDAS. So looking at the numerator, I have an exponent right here. So remember, exponents come first. So 5 squared is 25 plus 10. There's my fraction bar. My denominator I treat as one big group, so I use my GEMDAS. Exponents will come first. So remember, 3 squared was 9 minus 2. So now that I've done my exponents, I don't have any multiplication or division, but I do have some addition and subtraction. So on the bottom or top right here, 25 plus 10 is 35. 9 minus 2 is 7. So now that I've simplified this, the last thing that I do, all of my groupings are done. So the last thing I do is just simplify this. Remember, this is the same thing as saying 35 divided by 7. This division bar right here is, this fraction bar is division, so divided by. So we have 35 divided by 7, which is 5, and that is your final answer.